Lee Summit is your destination for big city vibes and small town charm.
Head to the downtown Lee Summit Farmers Market, where local meets fresh. Then grab a cup of coffee and discover a variety of shops and boutiques just around the corner. Continue the fun in downtown Lee Summit at a retro arcade bar. Discover your new beer at one of our 6 locally owned breweries. Cool off with some handcrafted cocktails at happy hour. End the night with live music and good company. Lee Summit, Missouri.
Hello, Lee Summit. I'm Laura, and this is your flash briefing for the week of November 18th. Heads up, Jackson County taxpayers. Lee Summit City Hall is currently unable to process tax payments, print receipts, or create waivers. Taxpayers are advised to visit Jackson County location or pay online at jacksongov.org. City Council will meet for regular session Tuesday night, 6 in council chambers in City Hall. Meetings are open to the public or watch live on the city's YouTube channel. If you can't watch, catch the recorded meeting on demand on the YouTube channel or by subscribing to the Council Debrief newsletter, which breaks down 3 to 4 key agenda items. Subscribe at cityofls.net. Head to Howard Station Park on November 22nd as we light downtown in thousands of sparkling lights for the mayor's tree lighting at 6:30 p.m. This year's theme is Miracle on Main Street. Enjoy shopping, musical performances, a visit from Santa and Mrs. Claus, and much more to get you into the holiday spirit. Holiday shopping is in full swing. Need a stocking stuffer? Check out the Lee Summit Marketplace located in the lobby of City Hall. It has great items like Lee Summit branded socks, Tervis tumblers, coasters, and more. Show off your Lee Summit pride. It's open 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. And have you ever wondered how your local government works, how the city budget is developed, and where the city gets its water? The Citizens Leadership Academy will help answer those questions and more. Tour facilities and learn about the inner workings of city government from city leaders and elected officials. Participants will attend 7 sessions beginning in January. Applications are accepted through December 13th and space is limited. Find the application on the city's website. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
Welcome to the Lee Summit Sign Department. We are going to walk you through our process from start to finish. We make signs as needed here. It's not like we just go out into the field and place a speed limit sign here, no parking here. Our traffic engineers, they go through and they'll do field studies. They'll send us down an engineering work order for us to go out, place new signs or remove signs as needed. Coming from the material, our blanks come in and they're just aluminum blanks. We can put our white, our red, our fluorescent yellow, green, whatever. And basically what it looks like is just that there. Throw it up into the roller. And once we got it covered, take it to our work table here, and Tim will cut the corners, cut all the access off to where it's lined up right. As far as the plotter and the software that we use, there's a street name sign there, and he's gonna go ahead and print that out on the plotter so you can see the plotter and how it operates and runs. There's standards for the height, even just on letters on the sign blank. Basically what we have on the computer there is it's pretty much set up to those. And it goes through, it's got a very small but sharp needle that goes through and cuts everything out, letter by letter. Once that's done cutting, our next stage would be bringing it over here. Currently picking out the sign letters right now. We call it weeding or picking or however you want to call it. Next, putting it on the transfer tape. Then after it's taped, we bring it over to the roller. That's where we apply it to the actual sign blank. And we'll roll it through one time just to get the air bubbles out. And the last stage is basically just taking the transfer tape off the front of it. And there's a finished product of the street name sign. We'll take you out to the field and show you our process that we go through. We're gonna go out and follow our sign guys and get something installed for you. This is where we check our underground utilities. Tim, you got AT&T?
AT&T's back here.
Evergy, Google, so we should be good to go. We normally put all of our stuff together out in the field. Then once the base is installed, we'll go ahead and put the post in there. We've come up to perfect. And that's how we do it. Simple, quick.
It's Member Pryor.
Thank you, Mayor. Quite a few of us are getting questions. I know I've gotten a few questions about the plan, so I didn't know if, just for the public knowledge. I'm not a politician. I feel like I'm just an average person in Lee Summit. They have a football field set up. Inside these cones are their football fields. Our two-car garage is we're gonna bring the driveway back through here, and it's gonna go right here. And then, so my family has chickens. When we first got chickens, my husband said, don't treat them as your pets, treat them as chickens, because we're going to be eating the eggs, and I would like to use them for meat. So don't treat them as your pets. Well, we now have 6 chickens that I consider my pets, and I will not let him kill for meat. So we live downtown, and we love living downtown. These are my children. The first one's Lincoln, and Amira, and Sophia, and Caleb. This is a great neighborhood. Downtown is one big community, and all of the kids get together and they play basketball, and we like to walk to the farmer's market. Here, hold my hand. It's an easy walk, probably less than 10 minutes. The farmer's market has always been a very important part of my life and my family's life. As a matter of fact, when my daughter started kindergarten, I dropped her off and I was going shopping at the farmer's market right behind Lee Summit Elementary. And I was teary-eyed because she was my first and she was going off to kindergarten. And Terry, the butterfly lady, the one that's in the purple shirt, and she used to make little butterfly stickers for everyone, she gave me a big hug and was just so empathetic to the fact that my daughter had just started school. How are you guys doing? Doing well. How are you? Yeah, very good. A lot of the farmers there, they've watched my kids grow up. I love Lee Summit in general. I love that it still has a small town feel while embracing growth and the arts and diversity. And I feel like downtown specifically embodies that. My kids go to Lee Summit Elementary, and a lot of their teachers live downtown, and a lot of the business owners from downtown live downtown. So when we're out walking downtown, we see so many people we know. I lived in Africa until I was 5, and then we moved to the United States, and I've lived in Lee Summit since. A lot of my childhood, my mom was a single mom, and I feel like I was essentially raised by my community and being on council, and it's just such an important way to give back to the community that raised me.
I state your name.
I, Mia Pryor,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications
this day of April 2022. The election process was fun. I got to go door to door and talk to people, which is my absolute favorite thing to do, is talking to people and learning about people. I even had people inviting me into their house for dinner or inviting me back to their house to meet their spouse. And I knocked on a door, and the lady that answered the door was my kindergarten teacher. So it was a lot of fun. Is it on? Hi everyone, I'm Councilmember Mia Pryor. Thank you very much for coming tonight. I have one on, can you not? Okay. Maybe I might. I love being a council rep for District 1. I know everyone says this, but District 1 is by far, in my opinion, the best district. Raintree Lake, that's part of District 1. I love that community. Actually, my husband and I got married at the clubhouse in Raintree Lake. I really love all of South Lee Summit. I love the growth that they're going to be experiencing soon and that they've already experienced. I wanted to say that if you guys have a concern, please come tell us what your concern is, because we can only address and help with what we know. We're there to kind of bridge that gap between constituents in the city, and we're the voice of our constituents, and we can go to the city and voice what their concerns are, what their ideas are. So if you have a concern, definitely make us aware. So my big priorities are public safety. That's always one of my top priorities. I've always wanted to make sure that first responders were supported. I think that that's super important to me and to many in our city. But also, I wanted to influence the growth in Lee Summit. I wanted to influence the type of businesses we get here and the type of activities there are to do for our families. If we're going to continue to grow downtown, how important it is to focus on people that already live here and the infrastructure we already have in place.
Our first presentation tonight is going to be Assistant City Manager Ryan Elam, who is going to talk about that very exciting Farmers Market Plaza.
But I want to show you the most recent rendering, fly-through video of that. That's really the best way to kind of get a good sense of what this will look like in the near future.
To see it developing into something as big as it's going to be across from City Hall is super exciting to me. I can't wait for it to get built and to start welcoming people into what the farmers market's going to be, but also everything else that goes along with that development.
Okay.
You want to hold it? Don't drop it.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
I'm just an average person in Lee Summit that wanted to be a voice of many that sometimes feel like they don't have a voice. Yeah, I'm not a politician. I'm just a mom that cares.
Monday, November 18th, 2024, Public Works Committee. Roll call, please.
Chairman DeMoro.
Here.
Vice Chair Pryor.
Here.
Councilmember Carlisle.
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. First item, approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion.
Chair, I move to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none. Roll call.
Chairman DeMoro.
Aye.
Vice Chair Pryor.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next up, public comments. I don't see public comments. Okay. All right, we'll move into business then. The first item is the approval of the October 14th, 2024 Public Works Committee action letter.
Chair, I would move to approve 2024-6591.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve the October 14th, 2024 Public Works Committee action letter. Roll call, please.
Chairman DeMoro.
Aye.
Vice Chair Pryor. Councilmember Carlisle.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next up is resolution number 24-16, resolution to repeal and replace resolution 22-14, authorizing additional funds to the City of Lee Summit Water Utilities and the Public Works Department's application for grant funding from the Missouri Department of Natural Resources for the State of Missouri American Rescue Plan Act for water infrastructure community programs. Karen Quackenbush, good evening.
Good evening. Karen Quackenbush, Senior Staff Engineer. Resolution 2214 was approved by City Council on June 21st of 2022. With the approval of this amendment, the city will receive additional funds, bringing the final award amount to $4,546,000. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Do you have any questions from the council? Sounds good to me.
Yes.
And we can get additional funds, yeah.
Yes, sir.
So being a resolution, we'll have to vote on it, right?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Being a resolution, you want us to vote, we need to vote on it.
Yes,
Send it
please.
to council for
Yes,
approval.
please.
Okay.
The
Right.
city recommends.
Yeah,
Yes.
for a motion. With recommendation, yeah, of approval.
Chair.
Yes.
I move to advance resolution 2416 to council with recommendation for approval.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second, moving resolution number 24-16 to the full council with a recommendation of approval. Roll call, please.
Chairman DeMoro.
Aye.
Vice Chair Pryor.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next up is bill number 24-206, an ordinance awarding the bid of project number 576-10C for the East Fork Little Blue Area 3 and 4 Stormwater Project to VF Anderson Builders, LLC, in the amount of $3,554,705, and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same. Ms. Quackenbush.
Thank you. The project, as designed by Algar Martin and Associates, was publicly advertised on September 17th, 2024, in accordance with local policies and state statutes. 3 bids were received, and VF Anderson Builders was found to be the lowest and most responsible bidder. The primary components for the project include construction of public infrastructure, excavation of 2 detention basins, one of which will be a regional stormwater detention basin. It also includes removing and replacing a fence, improvements to the water main, sod, curb and gutter, driveway, pavement restoration, and repairs. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? I don't have any questions either, so
Okay.
looking for a motion.
Chair, I would move bill number 24-206 to full council with a recommendation of approval.
Second.
You have a motion and a second, moving bill number 24-206 to the full council with a recommendation of approval. Seeing no discussion, roll call, please.
Chairman DeMauro,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle,
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next up, Bill number 24-207, an ordinance awarding the bid for project number 575 for the 3rd Street improvements from Jefferson Street to Blue Parkway to Miles Excavation Incorporated in the amount of $6,249,762.81 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same. John Persing.
Evening, Council. John Persing, Staff Engineer, Public Works. This item is for the construction contract for 3rd Street to go to Miles Excavating. The project, you might think it already got started. It's all those utility locates going on right now. But for the project, we'll be repaving the road. There'll be a new mixed-use path. It's about 10 foot wide that goes on the south side of the road. There'll be water line, there'll be storm. There will be a 30-day closure of Jefferson Street. And other than that, there will always be one way of traffic coming into downtown from the highway into downtown. So there's also some improvements that'll be done between Jefferson and Market Street that are being funded by the CID group. It'll be just some street lighting and some banner across the road and some new street lights. So I think that's most of it. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Mr. Persing, the Jefferson Street closure, is that going to be between 2nd and 3rd, or is it going to be farther down? Or
It'll be the intersection of 3rd and Jefferson.
just that intersection?
Just that intersection,
So,
yeah.
okay. I said you really won't be able to get to 2nd from 3rd on Jefferson while they're doing this, right?
So, I'm sorry, say it again?
If the intersection's closed, you won't be able to go north to 2nd Street then, right?
No, I don't think
Okay.
so.
I'm just, in my mind, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And then do you
we'll
have a
have
timeline?
marked detour routes,
Right.
obviously.
I'll probably need detours with all the closures downtown, you know, go around in circles. But anyway, do you have a timeline yet? When,
Substantial completion in the contract is for November 14th, 2025.
and so starting, do you have a timeline? when-
And so it'll start, we'll probably get cracking ASAP here as soon as we get a contract in place and get all our submittals in order. So, I mean, it'll be a little bit weather dependent, but sometime around the holidays, probably a little after.
Okay, great. Any other questions, guys? No? Okay, I'll look for a motion then. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair,
Yes.
I move to advance to council for approval Bill number 24-207.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Moving bill number 24-207, the full council with a recommendation of approval. No discussion. Roll call, please.
Chairman DeMauro,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle,
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next up, bill number 24-208, an ordinance approving the award of RFQ number 2025-011 for professional engineering services for the Southeast Douglas Street improvements, Blue Parkway to 4th Street, project to Wilson and Company, Inc. for the amount not to exceed $797,930, and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same. Mr. Kohler.
Craig Kohler, Senior Staff Engineer. So this is the city standard agreement for Wilson and Company to provide professional engineering services on the Southeast Douglas Improvement Project from 4th to Blue Parkway. We sent out or publicly advertised RFQs. There was like 33 potential vendors that viewed the RFQs, 9 of them submitted, and then 5 public works staff members reviewed the submittals and then scored the submittals, and Wilson came out the most qualified. Basically, the project's going to be 2 lanes with shared lanes with the bikes. There's going to be 5-foot sidewalks on each side of Douglas, which right now they're not continuous. There's gaps and stuff, so we'll replace all those. It's going to be stormwater, lighting,
curb and gutter. Funding wise, this is coming from the April 23 no tax increase bonds. We've also secured $1.5 million of federal funding. So that's about it. If you got any questions.
Any questions from the council? I don't have any either. Motion.
Chair, I would move bill number 24-208 to full council with a recommendation of approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second moving bill number 24-208 to the full council with a recommendation of approval. Seeing no discussion, roll call, please.
Chairman DeMauro,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle,
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, bill number 24-209, an ordinance awarding the bid for project 571 for the Pryor Road Improvements from Longview Road to Hook Road to Clarkson Construction in the amount of $24,988,854.74 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same. I don't know how to say your first name. Is it Nakia?
You got it. Nakia.
I've heard it before, but
Yeah, Nakia Chapman-Freiberger, Senior Staff Engineer with Public Works. So this is the construction contract for the Pryor Road Improvements project. It's about a 2.5-mile stretch of Pryor Road between Longview and Hook Road. The project was created to improve safety and capacity along that section of road, and as well as add improvements for pedestrian and bicycle traffic. This project is funded with the 2017 CIP sales tax and has about $17 million of federal funding awarded to it. Main components of the project are widening to a 4-lane section with a raised median, adding turn lanes, access management, signals, paving, curb, enclosed storm, and then it will also have the sidewalk and shared use path, as well as street lighting along the entire length. We got 4 bids from contractors, and Clarkson came in at the lowest. And was responsible as well. Do you have any questions? All right.
Chair. I move to advance to council for approval bill number 24-209.
Second.
Chairman DeMauro, Vice Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle,
Aye.
thank you. The motion passes. Next up, bill number 24-210, an ordinance awarding the bid for project 997 for the Sampson Road Bridge Replacement and Stormwater Improvements Project to Radmacher Brothers Excavating in the amount of $3,063,499.20 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same. Karen Allison.
Hi, Karen Allison, Senior Staff Engineer with Public Works. I'm introducing the construction contract for the Sampson Bridge Reconstruction and Stormwater Improvements Project. The existing bridge on Sampson Road that crosses over Mouse Creek is a single-lane wood deck bridge on abutments that were installed 100 years ago. An inspection of the bridge determined that it needed to be replaced. The existing bridge abutments restrict the stream channel, and it causes unwanted stream degradation, erosion, upstream flooding, and downstream silt deposits in Longview Lake. This project will replace the aging bridge and restore the natural stream channel by raising and widening the bridge over Mouse Creek. This project was designed by the engineering firm Wilson & Company. The design of the project was funded by ARPA, the American Rescue Protection Act. It was advertised for bid on September 24th, and bid opening was on October 25th. There were 2 responsive bidders, and the apparent low bidder is Radmacher Brothers Excavating Company. Construction of this project is estimated to begin January 2025 and is expected to be completed by the end of 2025. City staff is recommending to proceed with awarding this construction contract.
Thank you. Any questions? And this will just be a 2-lane, right? north-south?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Looking for a motion.
Chair,
Yes.
I would move bill number 24-210 to full council with a recommendation of approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, moving bill number 24-210 to the full council with a recommendation of approval. Roll call, please.
Chairman DeMauro,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle.
Aye.
Passes. Next up, bill number 24-211, an ordinance approving award of RFQ 2025-23 to Affinis Corporation, Wilson and Company, Inc. for an all-con professional and surveying services, and authorizing the city manager to execute individual agreements of the same for a period of 1 year with 4 possible one-year renewals. Mr. Binger.
Good evening, George Binger, City Engineer. This request is to approve the on-call services for professional land surveying. This is a contract the city has had for many years as an on-call service because routine uses are things like we've used them for topographic surveys for small capital projects. Sometimes we have to use them for boundary surveys, legal services. Parks and Rec uses this. And so we put out the RFQ because it was up for renewal, and these two firms, Wilson and Affinis, were selected as the most qualified firms. They happen to have the previous contract that both these firms did, and the city likes to have 2 firms available. This is basically to manage workload, so one firm doesn't get overloaded. Sometimes they have different expertises or in certain areas. And with this contract, it has 1 year with potential for renewal 4 times. Now, there's no funding associated with this because when the services are approved, that purchase order has to be linked to a project or a budget that has that funding authorized. So that's why there's no funding attached to this particular agreement. It's just the authorization to use these firms going forward. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And George, each project would, like you said, have funding in for surveying. So it would be
Yes,
included.
if we use this contract, we have to link it to an approved budget or project. Now, we don't necessarily use them on all of our capital projects, like the one you saw, like for Southeast Douglas. That firm will provide surveying as part of the scope on that project. Same thing with all the other projects we've seen. This is for those small on-call services that come up on short notice, or it's maybe not tied to a capital project. Maybe it's something that we're doing related, we've done it. I say Parks has done that. Sometimes we have to do it for, like, if we're selling property, we need a boundary survey, things like that.
Anybody have any questions? Motion, please.
Chair,
Yes.
I move to recommend bill number 24-211 to council for approval.
Second.
Motion and second, moving bill number 24-211 to the full council with recommendation of approval. Seeing no discussion, roll call, please.
Chairman DeMauro,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle.
Aye.
That motion passes. Next up, 2024-6620, presentation and discussion of the FY 2026 CIP kickoff. Huh?
You said 2026.
Oh, that's an old slide.
Okay.
Probably. He's got 2026 to 30 on it. I see what you're saying, yeah. I didn't even see that. All right,
Okay.
thank you,
All
George.
right. Yes, good evening. Again, George Binger, City Engineer. Yes, this is very confusing because the capital improvement is structured on the fiscal year. We think in terms of calendar year, and here we are in 2024 looking ahead to the FY26 capital improvement plan. Part of the reason we're coming in early is because with the city's transition, ERP, the Enterprise Resource Program over to Workday, we're having to move the budget calendar forward 1 month. And so with that, the capital improvement plan calendar is getting moved forward a month. So that's why we're having the kickoff at this time. So with that, if you were doing the math tonight, you just recommended approval for over $38 million in construction work here in the city. And again, all those projects, it goes pretty quick here, but all those projects started within the CIP, and this is kind of the long process. So in this, this is kind of a refresher and overview. So as we work through this, you know, we're going to talk about how the CIP is structured, some of the things where, you know, the touch points we have with the public, and the revenues, the sources that come into it, and then kind of talk through some of the project selection process a little bit. And obviously, you know, we want to have discussion to solicit any of your input or recommendations and kind of show it with some examples of how that's influenced the CIP in the past. So the CIP, it's twofold. First, it's a planning document. So when you look at the capital improvement plan, you'll see a 5-year plan that is adopted as an amendment to the comprehensive plan. That component goes through Planning Commission to Council to be adopted as a resolution to amendment. Then there's the budget part, which actually approves the current fiscal year. So this capital improvement plan will approve the capital budget for FY26. So with that, in the plan that's presented, it is fiscally constrained. So every project that's presented in the CIP has identified a source of funding. So this is not the big laundry list of projects that we would like to do. It's things that we've identified, prioritized, and have identified funding. And it's grouped into different categories, as you can see there, and that's how the plan is structured with airports, roadways, stormwater. We include facilities, and we think in terms of facilities, that's fire stations, police departments, city hall, where the Green Street project is in the facilities category. And then there's the programs that are the things that we do every year, like our overlay program and our microsurface program, things we have to do to maintain our infrastructure. And typically, a project that is in here is a minimum of $75,000, and sometimes that's like the programs are small projects that get grouped together so we can manage that way. And then you can see there's the definition of what a capital improvement. The key are it's owned by a governmental agency, and there is a very long list of things that could be a capital project. So in the review and approval process, first we look at what's required. Do we have a bond issue that says this was on the list, this is on the ballot? Was it a sales tax election where it may not have been on the sales tax question, but it was in the information presented to the voters, the informational part of that? Is it tied to a grant? Do we have an intergovernmental, interagency agreement that we're doing this? Then we look at the ones that are highly recommended, where again, that's the public education. Those are things that are, or they're underway. We've already started the project. We don't want to stop it and stop unless there's a very compelling reason to do so. And then sometimes we like to discuss a short list of unfunded projects to kind of see, let's have some projects on the bench. So when we have this conversation, we can look at things that happen, because typically if we're getting in the spring when we're doing the public comment, we get a lot of comments, hey, we would like to do this project this year. We can't really fit it into this program. But that's noted, we collect those comments, and then so next year those will get included. And you'll see examples of that from past iterations. And then the other thing we want to do is we want to link these projects to our city's strategic plan and comprehensive plan. And then I kind of highlighted that authorization process. The 5-year is the planning document, and the 1 year that's the budget document. And you'll see in this presentation the stars that are there. Those are basically touch points we have with the public, whether it be with elected officials as far as council committees or public meetings. So this is kind of my big funnel chart that I show every year of all the stuff that goes in, whether you like to use the term making sausage or making the bread or whatever. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And I use the example of a funnel because if you think in terms of the comprehensive plan, it's a very broad plan or concept. And when we get to the capital improvement plan, we're getting to a very defined project that we can scope, we can design it, we can bid it and build it. So what this is trying to illustrate is the different things that go into it. So again, I mentioned the strategic plan, comprehensive plan, and then within that we have master plans for some of the infrastructure systems, such as we have a water master plan, a sanitary sewer master plan, a thoroughfare master plan. And so with this, we're identifying, all these plans have public input. We're kind of getting into this area here with the funding process, public input, whether that be through a public election or comments. The other thing that we look at on this public comment too is when we have project-specific meetings, like an example being the 3rd Street project that was just awarded. We had public meetings at the concept design stage and at right-of-way. Well, when people will come in and they'll comment, well, hey, what about this street over here? What about this? We take note of that. And so we try to cycle that in here, and that's where you see we kind of look at what things we want to do next. Because you'll see, we've had a lot, you'll see later, we've had a lot of conversation about the downtown core. And that'll be something that you'll see later in the presentation. So we take all those comments and we try to cycle them through this process so that we get something that's, we know that there's a lot of public input, and then staff is guided by that to come forward with the projects. And hopefully at the end, we're getting these capital assets built and delivered to the public. So we're here at the kickoff phase. That's, let's say, kind of that funding process. So we're kind of just getting into the neck of that this year. But then we'll start this cycle again next year. Okay, so how does a project come to fruition? I mean, we look at long-term plans, we identify emerging needs, then we prioritize. We have to kind of, what's important? I mean, everybody wants work done, but what's important? Then we get in, then we prioritize, then after the prioritize, we'll sequence, and that's where we get into the CIP. A lot of this is sequencing because we're trying to manage cash flow in a lot of these projects. And then we get to the project delivery. On the program side, again, that's that recurring annual activities where level of service is kind of a big driver on that. How many potholes do we want? What's our response time? What condition next do we want our pavement? How much, we track, water utilities tracks water main breaks, and that's how they put together their water small main repair programs. And then, again, we kind of work through that process of, is it infrastructure? Do we need to mitigate certain hazards? Are there regulations we need to address? Preventive maintenance, and then that's how we get in that annual program delivery process. So again, I mentioned the comprehensive plan. So we look at the key elements of success in the comprehensive plan, and we try to make sure we can link projects to this, that we're, again, in the context of this overall guidance. Same thing on the strategic plan. Is it fitting, the city's vision, mission, and values as far as that goes? And then are we having the right community partners involved with that C4 group there? Okay, this bubble chart, I know it's not fun to look at, but this is kind of what we do at staff as we go line by line. We look at a project, we go across the top, you'll see those comprehensive plans, strategic planning factors, and we try to put some sort of a relative scale on this. Does it promote it or not? And so we kind of look at that, and then we kind of look at a cost on the far right column, and you can kind of see this is the exercise we did back in 2016 and 17 when we were going forward with that CIP sales tax renewal. Similar exercise last year when we were doing the April no tax increase bond issue. So this is what we will do as staff as we'll go through this kind of line by line to see, are we still aligned? Are we staying aligned with all this? So again, using 2017 as an example, the projects that are lined out are ones that are completed, and the ones that are highlighted in yellow are the ones that are underway. So as you can see, that's a 15-year sales tax, and we're basically in year 6 of this right now. And we've got all but those 4 projects underway in some form or fashion. This is another element we've added to the CIP. Again, I mentioned fiscal versus calendar year. So now we're trying to present this more of a calendar year. Here's when the projects are going to happen, kind of a schedule. So what you'll see is on that, and again, I look at this, I did this backwards because the idea is green is the pre-construction and the amber is when we're actually in construction. So if you look at the bottom one, that's more of the correct presentation of how this works. So if you look at like the Douglas Street that was just presented tonight for design, you can kind of see there the latter half of 24 is when we're looking at starting the design. And then that'll take place through 2025. 26 is when we'll start that transition, whether it's the right-of-way, the bid phase, that's the plan, and then we'll start the construction in those calendar years. Now, obviously, these things are subject to change, When we get grant funding involved, we may have to shuffle around a little bit to stay on track with the grant funding. Or, we hit things like right-of-way acquisition that slow things down, or utility relocation that takes longer. But this is the idea, to present a conceptual plan of when projects are going to occur. And when this is put together, we also go through and look at our staff available to manage these projects and to get these projects done. So we try to work with that constraint as well. This is the new web page that we have for project status. This is more of a map-driven site. And basically, if you go to our city website and if you, on the landing page, if you just in the search bar type in CIP project status, it'll get you to this web page. And then, or if you want to hyperlink it as shown at the bottom, you can do it that way as well. And this is interactive. If you zoom in, it'll zoom in on the project and it'll shorten the list. You can sort by type of project. And then you'll see on the right, it's just a very generic description of what it is. Our projected schedule and the budget and the basic phase that it's in, whether it's in design or planning. And so what you'll see here, if you can see, the 3rd Street Improvement Project is the one that's highlighted, and you'll see that's what's shown on the right hand picture. And so again, it's a very broad overview as far as where the project is. As we go forward with this, one of the things that we're doing is each project is going to have its own web page developed, and that will have the detail status. So as we fill in those project web pages, we'll start putting it on this page to make it, again, that's not complete because we haven't gone back in time to try to recreate all these web pages. We're basically from this point going forward with the web pages. So if you go there and you don't find a web page, I understand that's kind of a glitch in the system right now, but that's something that we're working on. So an example of the comp plan and how this works, we want to show that something supports a good number of elements within the comp plan. And so examples, like if you look on the detail sheets, we'll see, the transit service facilities, GAP program, and I believe the next, and that shows up here on this page here. This is the detail sheet that you'll see in the CIP. This is what's out there online right now. And you'll see at the bottom, that's where we link the planning elements. So again, I'm using the Douglas Street as an example. You can see it's fairly well aligned with our strategic plan. It's fairly well aligned with the comprehensive plan. And that community engagement, again, this is an example of where we've received public comment many years. We've had lots of service requests on this project. We've had past CIPs where residents have said, we really want to see something done in this area. It took time, but we're here. So I just want to reiterate the fact that public input is important because that's what that will help it get things on our radar. But we also want to make sure we get it in line with the other things. Is it supporting? Again, there's an infrastructure condition. Craig had mentioned we have sidewalk gaps in this area. We know we have stormwater issues in the area. We know it is a walking route to and from the high school. So these are things that get put into this evaluation. Now, so an idea is if you look at this in the thoroughfare master plan, we have these downtown core collectors like 3rd Street, Douglas, North and South, Independence Avenue. Those are in our thoroughfare master plan. Those are in our 2017 CIP sales tax. So again, that's an example of how things are put into this. Obviously, this project was unfunded for many years, because we didn't have a source identified, and we started looking at ways we could allocate money for this, and again, it came through the 2023 bond issue and our federal grant money. So looking at the funds, the overall funding stuff, we have many different sources of revenue that feed into this, and sometimes they overlap. If you look at an example, if you look over you can kind of see like the purple is our CIP sales tax, so those projects on the left, that's funding is going towards that. Well, we also have the 291 interchange, which has some CIP sales tax money into it. We have the excise tax on development. That's a separate source of revenue that goes into that. We have grant money going into that. We also have, so you can see there's a lot of things going into that project from different funding sources. And if you go back to this detail sheet, you'll see here in the middle where the funding sources, And since this is from last year's CIP, we don't have that grant listed there yet. So when you start looking to see where they come from, this is where they are. So I know I'm kind of getting very detailed. Okay, with the capital improvement plan, I always encourage people to be patient, be persistent. And an example I use is when I started working here in 1999, my first project was Tudor and Scruggs Road and Todd George that were part of a 1968 alignment study. So quite a while, but what that plan did was, as development occurred, it required dedicating right-of-way for those corridors. So that's the importance of that long-term planning. You'll kind of see a similar thing that we're doing with the Shearer Parkway alignment study. Because we're trying to identify that up front, so as development occurs over time, we get the right-of-way dedicated. So you can see 1968, and then here we are constructing it in phases between 1992 and 2007. So even the construction itself took a while. If you think in terms of Ward Road, going from 3rd Street south to 150, that was multiple phases. It started out in 1997 as part of a bond issue, and then it moved over to that sales and excise tax program in 1999. 291 South Corridor. I think you're talking about the Oldham Village or that area right now, but that has been a long process in redeveloping and improving infrastructure in that area. With Jefferson Street, Shearer Road, we made the connection from Shearer to 291. MoDOT did the signal improvements there at Shearer and 291. So, and we did the 291 South interchange. So you can kind of see how a lot of these things, if we have this plan, pieces fit together that, you know, hopefully will set the stage for something, you know, very significant long term. And I always like to use downtown as an example. I mean, if you go way back to the 1980s or 90s, it had Vision of the Heart. And then you go through that, and then we did the Downtown Improvement Project. And it was, there was a lot of, that spurred a lot of private investment in the downtown area. And then now we're with the Green Street Project. So it's, again, you see that step-by-step approach that generally leads to pretty good outcomes on the capital side. Okay, I mentioned unfunded examples. The first one you see lined up there, Lakewood Way. That example is 1 year in the CIP. I think we had over 20 comments about we want to make improvements on Lakewood Way parallel to 470 from Colburn Road to our North City limits. Well, at the time it was, I'm so sorry, we don't have the money. It's not in the plan. But because that was there on the bench when we started looking at the NTIB list here in April, that rose to the top and was on the list. We see Airport Hangar 2, that was in that airport master plan for a long time. So that's examples of things that, in the past that have, been there, have been identified. So, every year, and so ones that haven't been funded yet, every year we talk about transit. Again, is that a priority? Is it not? I mean, there's, we'll generally do a transit presentation every year. It talks about the transit demand and where we're at with that. The things that come up on short notice are traffic signals are very common. Our traffic team does data counts and intersection studies, and so if the signals start to meet warrants, then we start looking at trying to roll those into the capital improvement plan. And so the newly warranted location, the Chipman and Todd George is one intersection, and 3rd and Bridlewood is the other. And those projects are in design, and they should be constructed next year. You look at Hook Road and the Hook Interchange, that's still out there. But again, that's probably going to be more tied to the Shearer Parkway as that develops with the PRI. I mentioned downtown core infrastructure. So if we think in terms of, what type of stormwater services or road, what do we want that stuff to look like? What investment do we want to, put in this area? Again, that shows up in the master plan. We get a lot of public comments on it, but there's no funding identified with that as of yet. Stormwater infrastructure. This has always been this has been an ongoing topic for many years. If you look in terms of July 1, we had the large rain event, and since then our stormwater crew has been basically doing nothing but repairing sinkholes since then. And in fact, they've had to augment that crew with additional operations staff. And so there's some concern, there is a need there for that. But then, okay, then we have to get into the level of service that we want, and so there's that long-term discussion. And then, we look at the airport, they have their airport master plan, and so things we talked about is the air traffic control tower. We've gotten into that program. Again, by having it in the plan, long-term, it allows us to make that argument with the FAA. We're not there yet, but we're moving that direction. and the new terminal building. So these are some examples of how unfunded projects have gotten into it, things we've heard about at this point, and I think, this obviously gets to be a point of conversation, through the process, whether it be in the spring when we have the public comment period, whether it be in conversations with y'all as committee or council members. This is, there's definitely time for that. So with that, I'll open it up to discussions, questions. I know that, again, I'm kind of recapping or reiterating a lot of things we've gone through before in the CIP, but I want to make sure that it's out there and everybody understands there's definitely the need for public input and guidance on this. And then once we get that, we as staff we'll make those eye charts and go through all that process and funding. And where we go from here, again, we're starting a month early because of the transition to Workday and moving the budget process up a month. So right now, it's pretty much in city staff's hand. We're going through plans, public input, guidance, kind of rack and stack or prioritize and sequence process, constrain everything, identify funding for all of this, and then we'll start coming back with the draft presentation of the CIP. So at this point, I'd be open to any comments, discussion, questions.
Thank you, George. Open it up for questions. Councilmember Pryor.
Thank you. When does the CIP survey thing come out?
The public comment, you'll see it. You'll see it. It will be in March and April of next year. That's why I say usually the spring. So about the time we start going to Planning Commission and City Council, and we put out for public comment, because we like to get those comments. We do the online comment. We also have the public hearing at Planning Commission. So when we get all those online comments, we'll take those comments, roll them up, and include that in the council packet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Well, George, thank you for your presentation. This is one of our major funding sources, as everybody knows, and so this rises to the level of importance for sure to get it right, or get it as close to right, and then we amend next year. But thank you for your presentation. It's always right on, spot on, and there's always a lot of good work that comes out of this. So, all right, well, that will take us.
Thank you.
Did you have something else, George?
No, that's all I have.
Okay.
Just for reference, our current fiscal or capital improvement plan is $720 million over 5 years. Yeah, and I say you'll see all these ribbon cuttings coming forth and groundbreakings, because the facilities they'll get started pretty quick because we own the ground.
Thank you. Open it up for roundtable. Do you guys have any roundtable items?
I just wanted to say thank you for that presentation, because that's always it's actually one of my favorites that we get, because, yeah, I like to refer people back to it, so thank you.
Before I get to you guys, I'm going to ask Jeff to come up. We had some letters that went out, or they're going to go out for the lead and galvanized pipes. And I had a question, and that is when we've identified, obviously, the lines. We have a lot of unknown. When it actually starts happening, I don't know a better word, when people decide that they have to do something on their service lines that connect to the city lines, is there going to be a process where we as a city will be able to help those that economically can't afford to upgrade their lines?
Good question. I'll start by, first off, Jeff Thorne, Deputy Director, Water Utilities. We have a mandate from the EPA, as does every other community in the nation, to deal with the lead service lines within our community. As part of that, we were required to complete a lead service line inventory. and have that inventory turned into the DNR by October 16th, which we did. We then had some 30 days after that to make some adjustment to it if we could further refine it, but we had to notify the residents the results of that in any area where they either had a lead line, a galvanized line requiring replacement, or if their service was unknown to us at this time. There are 39,000 roughly accounts, service lines in the city of Lee Summit. We went through by date, type of construction, ordinance passing, that kind of thing, and eliminated a great deal of those. When we got done, we had 78 known lead service lines in the city, 23 galvanized requiring replacement, and then roughly 470 unknowns. So we sent out letters based on that. Those folks that got the letters, those went out Friday, so some have already received it. In fact, we were just at our Water Utilities Advisory Board meeting, and one of our board members had a lead service line and had questions for me about it. We have to put together a plan for replacement of all the public side lines on that are lead or galvanized requiring replacement. Galvanized requiring replacement isn't just any galvanized line. It's a galvanized line that we cannot prove was never downstream of a lead line. So in some places, it's a galvanized line hooked up to copper because we replaced lead at some point, but it still was downstream and therefore requires replacement. So we have a 10-year window given to us by the EPA and the DNR to solve for all of the unknown and known lead and galvanized requirement replacement lines. In fact, some of those are on the board now for us because of the 3rd Street project. Some of the homes in that area are of such an age and construction that they're impacted by this. Well, we're going to be going in and replacing that water main with that corridor rehab and replacing the service lines out to the meters. Other spots, we were already doing work and had plans out to do that work, and so those are going to happen. So we're going to hit a lot of them pretty quickly on the public side. The private side becomes more difficult. Obviously, it's not a city-owned asset, but it is an encumbrance on those homeowners. As part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, there are funds for service line replacement that include some grant monies. Those grant monies are being dealt through the DNR, through the State Revolving Loan Fund, and are only applicable by the city themselves. So what we needed to do was to figure out what we had, which was this whole process that we're still just wrapping up. I don't have the final report from the consultant yet, but we did get the inventory in on time. So that we can look at and weigh how we're going to move forward with this, including the timelines for us to go out and replace even our own part of that infrastructure. So the simple answer is there's some stuff out there. The availability and the quantity of it I'm unsure of because we just now know what we've got. So that's where we're moving with it. As we know more, we will report back on it, but you may hear from some of your customers or from some of your citizens on this kind of thing, because we did send out letters on that, and that's basically how we're moving forward on it. Any questions?
Thank you, Jeff. Do you have a question? Trish Carlisle.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carlisle.
Thank you, Fred. Yeah. So just in case we get questions from our constituents, and they haven't received a letter yet, but are still wondering because their house is older, what years and prior should they be worried that they might have lead lines?
Well, when we looked at it and how we eliminated some of it is the city of Lee Summit passed an ordinance in the 1956 outlawing the use of lead service lines. It's not to say I passed that, somebody didn't go rogue and use one. But when we set up our specific inspections on that, we looked for that year, 57 and older is basically what we looked at to eliminate it. In 1984, I think 84, the state outlawed lead service lines as a state. In 2014, they reduced the amount of lead that was allowed to be in brass and that kind of stuff. Because of the various ordinances on that kind of stuff, we've inspected 10% of all the service lines in the city 2014 and older. The ones that were between 2014 and 57, we didn't find any that had lead in them. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible, but it's unlikely. If they have questions, they can contact the water department at 969-1900. We also have set up an email address that we included in the letters. So if it's an unknown and you got a letter and you're like, I'm not sure what I got, you go to where your water line comes into your house. And you take your camera, you take a picture of it, and you send it to LSLI, Lead Service Line Inventory, LSLI at cityofls.net. And a group of us will get that. And then we can take and sort through that and get back to you on what you got there. And if you have an unknown, we can take you off the list if it's copper or it's one of those things that are prevalent in our town.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate the update, and of course, as we move farther along, there, help, if there is help, and it sounds like there can be help, the city has to apply for it, then that will be publicized.
That would be publicized.
Yeah.
We'd bring that forward to y'all to understand what we've done, but we're looking at what that looks like from the state side, and we're looking at what we think the need is. We should have estimates for all of that work from our consultant. That's part of their deliverable to us. And I anticipate I'll get that middle of December.
That's great. That's great, yeah. I'm with predominantly the downtown core would be the houses that we're looking at. There's a few on the out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. You drive along some of the major roads and you'll see what used to be that old farmhouse, right?
Yeah.
Potentially that. But a lot of them are inside the downtown core. So 291, 50, Chipman, that area, that's where the lion's share is.
Thank you very much. Thank you for.
You bet. I have one other roundtable item.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
We also sent out some letters on Friday, and then also some stuff through LS Aware. We are doing a water main repair up along Lakewood Way tomorrow. It is a single feed, so everything north of Bolin on the east side of Lakewood Way has a single line that crosses 470 and feeds them, and it's a valve on that line just as it gets across. We think we can fix it hot, okay, with pressure. If we have to shut it down, we will send out more information again on LS Aware. It would also lead to probably a boil advisory. Not a boil order, a boil advisory. We just recommend it. We had a reduction in pressure, so we do that. We will do, if we have to do the kill, we'll do testing, we'll do all that kind of stuff, and we'll send out a retraction of that advisory when our tests come back. But right now, we believe we can fix it hot, but there's been some information out there. It affects 566 connections. So it's a big deal, so we've been trying to get ahead of it, communicate it. We've got it all set up. Our guys will be out there first thing in the morning to start getting ready for it, and we anticipate that they'll have the whole well open and underway about 10 a.m. so that we'll know what's going on.
Okay, good information. Thank you. Thank you. Gentlemen, do you have any roundtable?
Thanks, Jeff. Great information, and appreciate George. I don't know how many times he's done that presentation, but it gets better every time. And
yeah.
Chairman Tomorrow, you're right. This is probably one of the most critical processes that this committee tackles every year is our CIP. I mean, over $700 million in a 5-year programming window. And I don't know if you noticed, but almost $38.5 million worth of work delivered from our CIP here tonight is a tremendous night of awards, and even probably more proud is that more than half of that is federally funded. And so we had over $20 million worth of federal funds dispersed in these construction contracts, and that's pretty impressive too. So last thing I would note is, just for your recollection here, all of these had bill numbers and resolutions assigned to them because they will all be advancing tomorrow night. On the agenda, there won't be this week period between committee and council readings because tomorrow night's our last meeting of the month. I don't have anything else.
Thank you. Mr. Elam, anything? Nothing? Great work. Okay. The next Public Works meeting will be on December 9th, it looks like. December 9th. At 4:30, yeah. The reason, there was a water utilities meeting, and, yeah, I actually had to leave early. We thought yeah. All right, thank you. I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all.